Hi, thanks for using emergencyclipboard.com. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create checklists, I'm going to show you how to manage checklists, and I'm going to show you how to print checklists out for all of your staff members. So let's go ahead and get started. The first screen that we're looking at is the screen that you come to after logging in with your username. At the top of every screen in the system, you'll have some menu items where you can manage checklists, you can manage system settings, or you can sign out. But let's go ahead and create a brand new checklist. You'll notice that there are also instructions on the left side of every single screen that pertain to the input fields on the right side. So we'll start with choosing our crew, and a crew is a general group of people that will execute the checklist that you're creating. The crew can represent multiple people or one person, and whenever possible the crew name should also reflect a location, and in the example on the left it says Teachers Hallway B. So I'm going to select in my drop down list, I'm going to select Teachers Hallway B. Now this was in there because I entered it in there previously. New accounts won't have any selections other than add a new crew. So if you select add a new crew, you get an input box where you can type in your crew name, and if you're just creating an example, you can put in Teachers Hallway B if you want to. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and select Teachers Hallway B. I'm going to choose an event. An event describes the reason that you need a checklist. Again, following the example on the left, I'm going to use chemical spill. And chemical spills in the system for me, again, because I already put it in there earlier. But for you, if it's a new account, you'll have to add a new event and type in your event name there. So I'm going to select chemical spill, and then the objective. The objective describes what your checklist needs to accomplish. So following the example, I'm going to evacuate students. You'll notice also on the left side that there's a link for general checklist guidelines. If you click on that, it'll pull up a PDF file that'll tell you, give you some best practices for creating a checklist, and then it'll also tell you how to check your checklist to make sure it's effective, to make sure it's actually accomplishing the objectives that you set out. There's also a link here where you can see where the data you're entering on the screen, where it'll finally end up on your checklist. So if you click on that, it'll show you where your event name goes, where the crew name will show up, the objectives, and more. So now that I've entered the information about my checklist, I'm going to go ahead and proceed to the next step. And this screen shows me that I'm ready to add tasks now for Teachers Hallway B. My event is chemical spill, and my objective is to evacuate the students. Now you'll notice that there are only 7 tasks that I can enter, and this is done on purpose because an emergency checklist should fit on one page, and it shouldn't contain lots and lots of items. In other words, you don't want your staff members to have to flip through pages and pages of information, or to read a whole, just read a whole bunch of information in order to execute the tasks that they need to during a crisis. So you've got 7 tasks. Each one is limited to 66 characters, and it's a bit of a challenge to make all this fit in some cases. But if you can follow the guidelines, your checklist will be a lot more effective. So just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to enter this as a test. Task 1. Now you can use all of these input fields if you want to, or you don't have to use all of them. You can use 2 of them if that's what your checklist requires. But for demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and fill them all in, and then when I'm done with that, I'm going to proceed to the next step. And this will take me then to my checklist manager screen, where I can see an entire list of all of the checklists that I've created in the system. It's broken down by event name first, alphabetically, and then who it's assigned to. I can also see the objective and when my checklist was last revised. The revision date is really helpful when you're going to test the procedures or the tasks that are in your checklist, and you need to go back and make corrections or whatever. You can see when the last time you touched it or made changes to the checklist. So now next to each checklist, I have 3 options. I can print my checklist, I can edit it, or I can delete it completely. If I click on the printer icon, it will generate a PDF file, and you'll see that now I have a checklist for the event is a chemical spill. It's for teachers in hallway B, and I'm going to evacuate the students. And if I scroll down, you can see all of the tasks that I have with a checkbox next to them. Now, this is a PDF file that the system generates, so you can print it out right here and make copies and distribute it for your staff members to put on clipboards, or you can save it here to your local computer and then you can email out copies if you want to. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. Now, if I click on the little clipboard icon, I can edit my checklist, and now my fields are pre-filled with all the information from my checklist. I can make modifications to it if I want, change the objective. I can change any portion of my checklist and then save that. Now there's an option at the top that says use print groups. It's disabled by default. Let me show you how that works. If we go under system settings, you can enable this feature here also. The print groups are designed to make distribution of the checklists a lot easier by printing crew member names at the top of each list. For example, say I have a crew called kitchen staff. Maybe I have 10 different individuals on my kitchen staff and I want to assign names to that crew. Well, if I enable my print groups and then select the print group that I want to manage, and here the print groups are directly tied to the crews that you have. So I only have one crew, so I'm going to select teachers, and then I get the screen here where I can assign names to that crew. See, I'm editing teachers hallway B. And I get two boxes here. The one on the left is my box of available names that I can assign to my print group, and the box on the right shows me all of the people that are in my group. And of course both of these are blank. So I want to add a name manually to my available names. So I'll go over here on the left and I'll type in Chuck Smith and I'm going to add that name. Now Chuck shows up in the available list, and I can put him in Teachers Hallway B by highlighting him and then selecting the right arrow to drop him over. Now he's in my group. And don't forget, anytime you make changes, to select the Save Group button. So let's do that. Save Group. I can also take Chuck out of my group if I want by highlighting him here and selecting the left arrow button. But I want him to stay in my group, so I'm going to drop him back over and save that. Now maybe I have a list of names that I want to import into the system. Maybe I have several hundred staff members that I want to assign to print groups. So in that case, on the left side, I have a link here to import a list of new names. Now your list needs to reside on your local computer. It needs to be a text file or a CSV file. There's also a link on the left side here. It's an example file, tells you how you need to format your file for import. So I'm going to browse my local computer, and I've created ahead of time a file called import.txt. I'm going to select the import button, and now you'll see I have 3 new names in my available names list. I'm going to select them all, and then I'm going to drop them over into my print group. After that, of course, I have to hit the Save Group button. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go back to the top of the screen under Manage Checklists, and you'll see my chemical spill checklist that I created, and of course use print groups is enabled. Now watch what happens when I click on the printer icon. The system then generates 4 pages instead of 1 page, and you'll notice that at the top of the page now is the name of each staff member, or the name of each crew member rather. So this one's for Teachers Hallway B, Chris Smith. If I go to the next page, Teachers Hallway B, Deb Smith, and so on. So now I just created one PDF file that I can print for everybody with everybody's name on it, rather than just printing out one checklist and having to make copies and write names at the top and distribute them that way. Though if I do want just a single checklist, I just disable Use Print Groups and click on the printer icon, and now I have 1 page, and I've generated a checklist for Teachers Hallway B, no names on it. So that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple, and I want to thank you for using emergencyclipboard.com.